We have the head of the seismic unit at the University of the West Indies saying that he's insisting that we're not ready to treat to these matters based on how we saw people reacting. Well, let's get into this now. In the Guardian this morning, there's a story quoting a lady who is the public relations officer of the Trinidad Tobago Association of Psychologists, Kelly McFarlane, and she's saying some things here. We don't necessarily see following disasters such as what we almost faced on Tuesday, the psychological effects they may have on survivors. She said that the way to help people who are adversely affected mentally by the event was simply being there for them. Kelly McFarlane, she's on the line with us now. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
All right, thanks for taking the call. So let's talk about that. You say that, so we know that people are going through trauma because I think in one of the stories, the front page of the Guardian this morning says that post-quake trauma. Talk with us about that.
Well, things affect people differently. And there are people who are more vulnerable than others, like, children, disabled, elderly, people who have experienced past trauma from natural disasters, whether vicariously or whether put on themselves, they themselves experience it or through someone else. And they tend to be the ones that are more vulnerable to being traumatized by something like this. Another thing that would affect the amount of trauma an individual experiences when something like this happens is, let's say, where they were, who they were around, and their own sort of innate way of dealing with stress and understanding and processing things of this nature when it happens, adverse events. We learn this from our upbringing, from our socialization, from being educated, and so on. And yes, as you mentioned shortly, we saw a lot of panic in the street, and that's something that happens when you're among a lot of people and something happens, that sort of mass pandemonium almost. We kind of react as others react. You might start running and not even sure what you're running about, but you just know something is happening and it gets you worked up, as opposed to someone who might have been at home and just kind of tucked themselves under a table and so on. So we are affected, or we do respond to things based on what's happening in our social environments as well.
Yeah, let's take this caution, because I think the head of the seismic unit is saying that, and from what he saw, he says that we aren't prepared because more people ran away from the buildings that they might have been in rather than seeking somewhere where they tell us that we should go under a table or stand in a doorway. I mean, how natural is that for people to do?
Very natural, because again, we are social beings, and again, if you are not someone who is necessarily very much, you don't know much about natural disasters and what exactly you should be doing. You might have heard some time ago, stand in a doorway, but you're not so sure, and then an earthquake of this magnitude that just wouldn't stop. If everyone else is running, you're going to start interpreting that, wait, maybe I should be running as well. You understand? And you're just going to start running. Your body goes into that sort of fight or flight.
Yes, that's what they say. That's what they call it.
Go with it. You just go with it. You're not able to stay calm and think, what's the best thing that I should do? Everyone is leaving this building, therefore I should leave as well.
Yeah. Do you know of any cases in which people have had to seek counseling in the last couple of days? Is that? I mean, you getting clients, or of people who want to get counseling for it?
Directly related to this earthquake, no. But I have heard and seen people talking about it quite a lot to each other, to their peers, to their family members, just kind of talking about what their experience was like, how scary it was, and it's on people's minds. It's heavily on people's minds. But it might take a couple of days before someone thinks, wait, I probably need to seek help because I'm not coping well with what has happened.
Sometimes it takes some days for people to recognize what you find that you're not getting over it.
Yeah, because you would expect that to be shaken up a bit, and then even if you talk to loved ones, they will say, well, it must be shaken up, this just happened, and you wait to see if but if you are someone who has had trauma related to natural disaster before, and you kind of been in treatment, and you know that you get panic attacks and you have your PTSD and so on, you would know, well, okay, the next time I see my therapist, I need to bring this up. But for other people who don't usually experience, who haven't had these sorts of experiences, they may not just immediately go seek psychological help right away. They would think, it's natural to feel some fear, to carry some fear.
Yeah, but you say that if you're a family member or you know a friend, if it does not start to subside after a couple of days, seek professional help.
Yeah. You definitely have to be aware of how people seem to be coping, the signs of anxiety, heightened anxiety, hypervigilance, the inability to cope, fear, the extreme fear, may not want to go out too much, maybe talking about it over and over and over, taking extreme measures to prepare, or kind of, obsessing about controlling what might happen the next time an earthquake occurs, if it occurs, which none of us actually can control. When you see these, not sleeping well and so on, and when you see these things and they don't subside and they kind of stand out from sort of the normal, let's say, quote unquote normal fears that everybody else has, then definitely, that person might might have experienced some post-traumatic stress that will, can worsen.
Yeah, so
if definitely help them.
If you are a family member who's not as affected as the person because you're talking about sometimes people get nightmares, you reassure them that you will look out for things, maybe take shifts in sleeping, so people can have their sleep interrupted or disrupted.
Yes. So yes, you just give them that support and again monitor it, of course. You would know yourself, you would know your people. You might know that your sister is, tends to get very worried very easily, or perhaps someone who has a disability and may feel like they're limited in their ability to protect themselves if they're home alone. You know that they would feel the fear of something like this happening much more. So you may not want to run for psychological treatment, but they would need the support until they settle down a little bit,
Yeah.
But if they don't seem to be settling down and they're developing the depression and the anxiety and they're pondering on the fact that they can't take care of themselves or they can't get over, they can't have a good night's rest, they can't eat well, then definitely we may need to treat them for PTSD or heightened anxiety or whatever is kind of fueling that amount of fear that they're experiencing.
All right, I know you got to go, but let me just ask you quickly then, if you can tell us, where were you and how did you respond?
I was actually at home, and I ran to a doorway because that's what I know. But since then, which is something that's really good, I've gotten a lot of information on social media that's been being forwarded, and it says that that's old news. You don't go under a doorway, you go under a table. So I've learned something. But it was very scary for me, especially because of the duration of the earthquake and the intensity of the earthquake. I started thinking about the earthquake that happened to one of our Caribbean islands recently and how much devastation it caused.
You mean Haiti?
These thoughts just start entering your mind naturally, and you have time to think because of the length of time that the earthquake was happening. And I was wondering, it was intensifying slowly as it went on, so I was wondering how much more is it going to intensify? Is anything going to happen? So I had my own panic, but I tried to stay as calm as possible and just figure out, okay, what should be my next move?
All right, thank you very much.
Sure, no problem.
Kelly McFarlane, Public Relations Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Psychologists. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we want to share with you what has been circulated on social media and